What are some ways to prevent a good prophet from going bad? That's a great question, and that is a very big problem in today's church. We allow prophets to go bad, and I actually deal with that in a book we've got coming out probably by next week, called "Exposing the False Prophet: A Field Guide for Defending the Flock." And the last chapter in the book deals with restoring fallen prophets. And part of why people become false prophets is they lack three, well, we could say really four essential elements that are necessary for preventing them from going bad. One is discipleship, and then the other three are accountability, accountability and support, and to some extent, I guess you could say coaching. So put it a little better in that: accountability, direction, and support. So they need discipleship, but they also need accountability, direction, and support. And by discipleship, I don't mean just a little program that's a couple months long that you put the 20-year-olds in and teach them the basics of the faith. Because usually when you mention discipleship, the response I usually get from most people is, oh, I went through discipleship 20 years ago. I went through discipleship a decade ago. I went through discipleship 30 years ago. I'm not talking about the ridiculous, idiotic discipleship program that you were in your church. Because most of the people say that from even just the tone in which they say it, you can tell they have pride. So, your heart's full of pride. So how good was that discipleship program anyway? When I say discipleship, I mean real development, dealing with the inner man. Not just, and part of it is teaching the basics of the faith. We should teach people the basic tenets of the faith. And unfortunately, most of the people sitting in the church don't know the basic tenets of the faith. Most people, in fact, most of the preachers I know, if I ask them what is the main reason Jesus died on the cross, they can't tell you. Almost everybody gives me the wrong answer. I'll help you out. The answer is in John 17:3, that they might know you, the only true God. That was the mission of Christ, for you to know God. Getting your sin forgiven was a means to that end, but the mission was for you to know God. And most preachers, never mind the congregations, don't know that answer. And what a surprise, the church doesn't know God. So people do need, not just prophets, but everybody needs genuine discipleship. They need to be taught the basic tenets of the faith, but discipleship goes beyond that. Discipleship is ongoing. You never really stop being a disciple, one way or another. Hey there, KC. Welcome to the broadcast. And then for prophets in particular, they're going to need accountability, direction, and support. They need accountability because this is a huge missing element for a lot of prophets. We find somebody, they'll take some kid who's 17 years old, 16 years old. They see he's got a prophetic gift. They see he's kind of accurate sometimes, at least on a personal level, and they'll put him up to preach. They'll make a preacher out of him. They'll give him a platform. He's not even out of high school. He's not grown up. He doesn't have any maturity. Nobody's really discipled him. And now nobody's going to hold him accountable because he's got a gift and he's making money for the church. They need meaningful accountability. Somebody's got to have the nerve to tell the prophet when he's wrong. Somebody's got to have the nerve to put this prophet in check or sit him down when necessary. But we don't do that. So you need accountability, and not just for behavior modification, but part of accountability is also the side that encourages you. Just like a good coach. A good coach holds you accountable, but a good coach will also reward you for doing well. A good coach will give you direction. You don't coach a quarterback the same way you coach the left tackle. They got a whole different training regimen. A running back doesn't go through exactly the same kind of training as a free safety. And you sure don't train a professional wrestler the same way you train a professional boxer. There's some overlap. They both need a lot of cardio. They both need endurance and stamina. They both need a certain degree of physical strength. But their skill sets are different. And their art form is different. One is a real sport in the sense it's a genuine competition where somebody's genuinely trying to beat the other person, and the other one's more of a show. But I think you see what I mean. So there's got to be accountability, but there's also got to be direction. Prophets, and especially budding prophets, young prophets, emerging prophets, whatever you want to call them, they need direction. And part of that, some ways you can do that with young prophets, set up a weekly prayer meeting that's for the prophets alone. Great, have prayer meetings for the rest of the church too, but you need some gatherings for the prophets, for them to pray together, for them to be taught, and for them to have some time to exercise their gift in a safe environment, because just because somebody's got a gift doesn't mean you got to release them to the general population. There should also be a team of intercessors. If you've got enough people in the church, goodness, have some intercessors that are assigned to those prophets to pray for them, and because they're going to need some prayer. Because most churches don't do prayer meetings. Most preachers don't pray. But I'm saying the things that should be done. So there should be some gatherings for the prophets. There should be prayer meetings specifically for them. We should, if at all possible, have intercessors that are assigned to pray daily for those prophets. Because like I've said before, pastors, the devil wants your prophets. And if you are not diligent, he will get them. He's been getting them. So they need accountability. They need some direction. They need structure. Usually when I'm mentoring prophets, I give them assignments. I pray for God to show me something, and then God shows me something, what I should assign them, and I give them assignments. I give them things to pray about. I give them things to study in the Word that are specific to their calling. I might give them specific assignments on things to investigate prophetically, because it's like the old saying goes, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So I'll give them something to do. We think giving a prophet something to do is giving them the microphone and letting them minister to everybody. No, sometimes while you have him sat down, while he's being trained, while he's being groomed, while he's being discipled, because you got to work on his character. And any good sports coach will tell you this: you do not coach the athlete, you coach the person. This is a big problem for a lot of the church. We don't coach the person, we coach the gift. We coach the minister. We train the minister. So we'll train them how to use their gift. Sometimes we'll even train them how to steward their gift, but we don't work on their character. You want to keep good prophets from going bad, you need to focus on not just their discipleship, but their direction and their accountability and their support as a son. Because prophet, that's a job. Their identity is son. Their identity is daughter. And most people in the church, never mind prophets, but most of us do not have the slightest clue of what our identity in the body is. Some of us will know we're a son, but we don't know what kind of son we are. Which son are you? You know, that would be like if I know that I'm my father's son, but I don't know whether I'm the younger son or the older son. That don't make any sense, does it? But I sure know. My brother's older than me. He's the firstborn. I'm the unwanted middle child. I know my place in the family. Do you know your place in the kingdom? Most people don't. That's why I talk so much about discipleship and why I talk about sonship. If you want to keep good prophets from going bad, you got to work on them as a son. They got to learn how to be a son. Because if you haven't learned how to be a good son, you're not going to be a good prophet. You got to be a good son first. And you got to be a good son last. Because let's say you live to be 100 years, which is highly unlikely. And let's say God starts using you as a prophet, let's say at age 5. Okay, so you spent 95 years functioning as a prophet. You're a son for eternity. Which one of those periods is longer? It's funny how we place such a heavy priority on the shortest part of our relationship with God. Your mortal life is the shortest part of your relationship with God. No matter how long you live on this earth. 100 years is not even a blink in the eye of eternity. You want to keep good prophets from going bad? You need to disciple them with eternity's view in mind. Who is this prophet to God? What does God want out of them? What kind of son were they intended to be? And my goodness, another way to keep good prophets from going bad, you got to, part of the discipleship package is not just the accountability and the direction. Well, this falls under accountability, I suppose you could say. There's got to be some deliverance. There's got to be some, not just in terms of casting out demons, but you got to deal with issues. A lot of prophets go bad because they've got underlying insecurities. They've got underlying emotional damage that they're not healed from. You know, we're letting people loose as prophets in the church that were, they were molested as children and they never got over it. They're not healed from it. But we're going to, here's the microphone. Do your thing. And this person is deeply wounded inside. Yeah, we also got to deal with issues like pride. A lot of prophets that carry all kinds of emotional scars. They're not healed. And then we wonder why they do so much damage. We allow people to minister as prophets, and they've got glaring, obvious insecurities. That's got to get dealt with. Now, I know somebody's going to want to argue, oh, nobody's perfect. God can still use you when you're not perfect. Sure he can. Sure he can. I can still drive my car if it's in a state of relative disrepair, but that's not the most responsible thing to do, is it? It's the will of God for you to be whole. And a lot of us want to cop out of our responsibility as leaders because, quite frankly, we live in a time where if people are not comfortable with you as a leader, they just go somewhere else. And a lot of leaders have been very remiss in dealing with underlying issues in prophets because they don't want them to leave. You got to take that risk. You're going to have to deal with their underlying issues. If they got ego problems, if they've got insecurity problems. Yeah, we got to get some healing before imparting to folks because you can only really impart what you've got inside you. You can only impart what you are. And if what you are is broken and damaged, guess what? You're going to break and damage some things. Not because you want to necessarily, not because you mean to. It's just going to be a consequence of your present identity. And that brings us back to sonship. But you have a lot of prophets that are, and I've known a lot of them. Goodness, I've known prophets who led churches who they've got some really bad insecurities. And those insecurities drive a lot of their decision making. It drives a lot of their behavior. And then, then we're shocked when bad things happen.